say.
Oh, hi. Norman, I didn't know you worked here.
I didn't know either. Yeah, welcome to Kambiade, and okay, Mr. Jeremy, what can I do you?
You have any ginger ale?
Funny you should ask.
I was just reading your book.
Really?
Yeah, Ring of Fear.
But anyway, no, I mean, it's good to see you. Thanks for picking up my book.
Yeah, I picked it up right after it came out, and I was curious to see what was inside, because on the cover here, you know, it's very horror-oriented, and it's called Ring of Fear, so I expected to see a lot of J-horror, The Ring, Ju-on, those kinds of things. But I was surprised to find out that after I started reading it, there were like over 150 pages of tokusatsu and kaiju stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a big portion of the book is dedicated to the kaiju movie sets that I went back then. You know, and most of these are Fangoria. You know, originally were printed in Fangoria. I've updated some of the pieces and rewritten passages that I wrote a lot of these 20 years ago. So I've updated some passages to make the writing a bit stronger.
And right, so this is mostly work that you did for Fangoria over the last
20 plus years.
20 plus years of reporting on Japanese cinema.
Right. You know, the first article here is an interview with Shusuke Kaneko that I did in between Gamera 2 and Gamera 3. And like, yeah, you had pointed out that, especially the opening of the book, there's a lot of kaiju stuff. Yeah, what's in this? Gamera 3 set, Godzilla 2000, Megagiras, GMK, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, and Tokyo SOS, the infamous Death Kappa. I'm on the set of that. And I'm probably forgetting something else, but that's kind of, in terms of tokusatsu stuff or kaiju stuff, you know, there's a lot of reporting on that. But I know you're saying, like, you know, why isn't there kaiju represented on the cover? You know, my other book before that, Behind the Kaiju Curtain, was very kaiju-centric.
Check out the previous video if you haven't already watched it.
Actually, this is based on a photo I took on the set of Ju-on 2, the movie set. And I really like Takako Fuji, who's the actress here. And a friend of mine is an artist in Japan. He does a lot of Blu-ray covers, and his name's Miyagi. And I asked him to do a version of this, of the photo. I kind of did want to emphasize a little more, you know, that I was a reporter on movie sets in Japan. So yeah, sure, I had a choice between kaiju or this, but you know, of course, with Godzilla, I'm going to wind up in another situation with Toho, where they're not going to respond. This is published independently. You know, my other one, Behind the Kaiju Curtain, it was very difficult to get any kind of dialogue going with Toho, and then the publisher and I, we settled on a photo from Gamera 3 because Kadokawa Daiei was much easier to deal with. And you know, even last week I was over at Osaka Comic-Con, and there were people from Kadokawa there, and they're looking at my book, and they're like, yeah, this is great. You know, they don't seem to have any issue with what I've done, you know, using a photo that I had taken. In fact, their attitude was, has nothing to do with us. Mm-hmm. You know, which is like, you know, that's so different from Toho, because Toho's like, it has everything to do with us type of things. In the beginning, I mean, it was really fun to go onto the sets of Ju-on 1, Ju-on 2, and then when the Grudge happened, I was on the sets of Grudge 1 and Grudge 2. Those are also heavily covered inside this. So I'm very happy with it, and
yeah, it's a great cover. I just think a lot of people that follow your kaiju work may not have picked up the book thinking that it's all J-horror, but that's not the case.
That's not the case.
And actually, if you own Behind the Kaiju Curtain, this is the perfect book to own as a secondary piece, because a lot of the photos that are kind of talked about in Behind the Kaiju Curtain are actually in this book.
Well, some. I was still a little careful when it came to Godzilla photos, so I used photos that were from press conferences, from the Tokyo International Film Festival, you know, ones where it was like PR events. And or even I did stuff like
The one I was the most excited to see was when you visited the Heisei Godzilla suit actors dojo.
Oh yeah,
that was one of my favorite parts of Behind the Kaiju Curtain, and I was really happy.
And now you get to see
the
dojo, the Satsuma's dojo.
Satsuma's dojo. My wildest dream.
Now I have a very interesting photo here of us in his bizarre, legendary dojo.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of like this piece is the magazine piece, and then Behind the Kaiju Curtain shows like what I was like dealing with,
right.
You know, making that.
Right.
So the Kaiju Curtain one is a little more frank about my interpretation of
right.
them, and the Fangoria piece and the piece that's in this book is more like, I don't want to say a PR piece, but it's an interview piece. So I'm not kind of like, man, what's going?
Yeah, this is less
here.
of your personal opinion,
right,
and more
right,
of just reporting on things.
Right.
But it's I think both those books go hand in hand very well.
And I have photos with me in it because that makes it more what they call in Japanese snapu, snap, which is kind of an off-shot type of thing, and it makes it a little more difficult for anyone to complain to me.
I loved all the different photos of you throughout the years, going back to like, there's even some of the photos of you kind of like in your punk stages in maybe New York.
Oh, yeah. And then I did stuff like this, is what I was saying, is like, this is at Tokyo International Film Festival. And those shows were great. I mean, it's really different today. I mean, it was very exciting back then, like, you know, the Heisei period had ended, and then the 98 Godzilla movie had come out, and that was kind of a disaster. Even though I know today it's got fans and, you know, whatever. You know, I like the film up to a point, up to Madison Square Garden.
We smell like the fish.
I think we should leave now.
I think that's a good idea.
But anyway, I mean, like, then when the Godzilla 2000 came out, and they started doing every year, except for Final Wars, what they would do for all the other ones, they would have the premiere would be at the Tokyo International Film Festival at Shibuya in Orchard Hall. So I would go to those every year. The Toho was very nice. They would get me in free. And those tickets would sell out right away, because it was like, I realized, I think I might have written it in Behind the Kaiju Curtain, that, like, especially at that Godzilla 2000, it became really obvious that it was like, you know, really, for Japanese people, like, Godzilla is, you know, Star Wars, Star Trek, you know, that's James Bond, you know, that's their biggest, you know, film franchise.
Right.
And especially at that Godzilla 2000 screening, they were like, on Orchard Hall, there were TV cameras lined up and down on both sides. And I was like in there going, damn, you know, this is it when it comes to genre films in Japan. You know? So it was very exciting. And every year, you know, that was always like the goal, was to get the film done in time. And I don't think any film was completely done.
Yeah.
I know GMK had a couple, and it's mentioned in Behind the Kaiju Curtain, a couple shots that were like not completed, and then I think they usually had English subtitles, but I think it might have been Godzilla 2000 didn't have the English subtitles. I know GMK had the subtitles because I had double-checked the subtitles, and that was my first experience of like dealing with subtitles, was the GMK things, and I rewrote about 20% of them, and that was fun. Yeah, they were all good shows. I mean, they were all exciting shows, and you know, so yeah, a lot of the photos I used, they were almost like every story inside of this, you know, has a shot from the International Film Festival. It was kind of unfortunate that year for Final Wars that they didn't have, even though Final Wars is not my favorite movie. Theoretically, it should be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Theoretically,
it should
on
be.
Paper,
you know, on paper.
Your favorite movie.
It should have been my favorite Godzilla film of all time. Yeah, that a lot of my American friends came in for when Final Wars played here, and it was the first time they had seen it before I had seen a Godzilla film, because they would come in, you know, because Godzilla films would traditionally open up around December 15th or so. This whole thing with like Godzilla Day, November 3rd, sometimes it would play the International Film Festival is always at the beginning of November. So there was like one screening or two screenings where it was on November 3rd. And what's kind of odd was there was never a big, this is Godzilla's birthday. That's like all of those things like the May the 4th be with you. These are all new PR things.
Right.
The fans eat it up. I personally, I find it, of course, an anniversary is an anniversary, but I find it a kind of a human contrivance. But so anyway, what I'm saying, like this year's Godzilla film, that Yamazaki has directed, is opening on November 3rd.
Right.
They're taking advantage of the whole anniversary. But it's like every day is like something's anniversary. There's only 365 days a year.
Let me backtrack. Tell us about the year that you moved to Japan and maybe some of the early films that you covered in your reporting.
Okay, well, I moved to Japan in 92. No, I'm sorry, 93. Sometimes it's written 92.